very good afternoon. Before I start, if anyone can let me know, am I loud and clear?
Yes, you are visible.
Yes, you are fine.
Clear.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, hello all. Sorry for the bad throat. Hello all. A very good afternoon. Myself, Ekta Dubey, on behalf of the Brinalytics team and a partner, Compass by Zozode, we welcome you all on our roundtable, which is driving impact at scale through automation. So before we start this interesting roundtable, there are a few guidelines that I would like to highlight and make you people aware of. Requesting all the attendees to be on mute when the speakers are taking the session. There would be a Q&A after the roundtable discussion. We'll open the floor for the Q&A with the audiences. The guidelines are you need to raise your hands, unmute yourself, if required, on your video, introduce yourself to the panelist and put your questions to the concerned speaker. So to start with, the reason why we are here today, business continuity and resilience have never been important than it is now. Automation, leveraging artificial intelligence and other technologies have opened up new possibilities. Today, with interesting sets of speakers, the topic for the discussion is driving impact at scale through automation. And I am happy to invite Medini Mangala, who is our moderator for today's session. Medini, thank you so much for being with us today. Over to you now.
Thank you so much, Ekta. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Medini, and I shall be your moderator for today's discussion. Just a very quick background about me. I've spent about 15 years in marketing in hardcore B2C companies such as Furlenco and Pocket Aces. But for the last 1 year, I've got to try something new with this wonderful company called Compass by Zozode. We're a SaaS company where I'm currently heading marketing. The conversation that we're going to have today is supremely interesting, and what makes it interesting is our esteemed panel. So very quickly, I'm going to ask the panel to invite themselves. Ajay, we'll end with you, all right, and then we will begin this conversation. So in no particular order, does the panel want to introduce themselves? Or Ramanji, would you like to go first?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. This is Raman Khepar. I'm heading international marketing for Cadila Pharmaceutical based out of Ahmedabad.
Wonderful. Sumit?
Sorry, I must be audible now. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sumit, and I am currently taking care of the South Zone GLP-1 business for Novo Nordisk. Have been earlier into marketing as well. So a mixed bag of career, marketing and sales, and looking forward to the discussions.
Wonderful. Babul?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the invite. So I am the country manager for India Asia for Rig Nanosystem, which is a medical device company, and eagerly looking to see how automation can be used across the segments.
Wonderful. Dipen?
Yeah, hi all. I am Dipen Dalal. I'm heading the alternate trade channel at Bajaj Consumer Care. Take care of modern trade, e-commerce, canteen and institutional sale business. Would be very interesting to understand this automation while we have all been using it. How can it make the business more effective and life a little easier? So yeah, look forward.
Hi, I'm Saikat. I'm heading commercial excellence. In this commercial excellence domain, I'm here for about 10 years. Overall industry experience about 23 years. I'm representing Zydus Pharma. Sorry, Bayer Zydus Pharma. Right. Yeah.
Wonderful. Sushil?
Hi, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. So I am Sushil. I am heading the Johnson & Johnson medical devices business for the West region. I have a diverse experience. I work for Novartis, Nestle, and now from last 14 years for J&J. So in my insight, of course, this topic is really very critical because we have a lots of platform for other processes. This particular platform is lacking. So I think this is the right time to discuss about the opportunity for this platform.
Absolutely. And finally, Ajay?
Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm Ajay Shenoy. I'm currently the Chief Business Officer for Compass by Zozode. As Medini mentioned earlier, we are a sales incentive automation platform. With regard to me, I have just a little over 2 decades of experience in sales. Started as a foot on street, moved across to an IC role, worked across companies like Citibank, Airtel, Vodafone, a lot of time with telecom, a lot of time with distribution. Did an entrepreneurial stint. A lot of people my generation wanted to do a little bit of their own business. Did that for about 7 years. Delved into water treatment and wastewater treatment, set up a hydroponic farm that still runs, ended up buying agricultural land, did my bit of madness, jumped right back into corporate. But then something which I felt was not so much of a sellout by joining a startup, because you still have a lot of independence, but really love the product that this corporate sells. The vision is beautiful. It's something that attracted me basis experience across the last 21 years. Really looking forward to engaging with all you guys on this panel. Thanks, Medni, for that.
Wonderful. So just quickly to summarize, I mean, like I said, we have a phenomenal panel. We have 7 plus Ajay plus me. So there's going to be a lot of conversation. This is not going to be restricted to a traditional panel discussion where I'm going to ask each of you to share your insights. It would be wonderful if this is a free-flowing conversation where you share your pain points, your stories, your learnings. That would be absolutely wonderful. Just quickly coming back to this. So the topic that we're talking today is driving impact at scale through automation. So some of the things naturally we're going to cover is what is automation and what are some types of automation? What are some processes that need to be automated? When we say scale, we're using the word scale, keeping in line the panelists and the companies they represent. They're all enterprises with large workforces that are scattered through geographies, slightly disengaged from their parent companies. And when we say driving impact, you can drive impact across functions, but today we're going to focus on driving impact through sales, and therefore talking about something that really bothers salespeople and the teams they lead, incentive and compensation management, right? So Ajay, just diving back into what you said. You said you joined this company because it articulated the pain point that you faced 8 years ago as a head of sales in a Vodafone or an Airtel. Can we start off with what some of those challenges were, and let's open the conversation from there, because we've got wonderful stalwarts.
Fair enough. I think I will go back a little more in time when I was at the end of the food chain, wherein I was an individual contributor, dependent on at least 40% of my income on a monthly basis with regard to what incentives I gathered. Fixed salaries at that point of time were a joke compared to what people pay today. But at that point of time, your variable is what you ran your life on, and your fixed salary was what went into savings, literally. So you took home loans basis that, you took personal loans basis that. But I think a common thread that flowed right through my entire career, which has been as an individual contributor to managing teams, which were in-house on-roll teams, and then at a later stage when we built partnerships, when we had distributor networks, we had retailer networks. The one common thread that flowed right across this entire chain was a complete lack of transparency. It didn't matter how great the company was. Didn't matter how big the brand was. It didn't matter how much you were paying them 15 days after a month ended. But end of the day, during the period of time when they could have made changes to how they're running their business, how an individual is working his sales cycle, what are the mistakes that he's making, how far he is from achieving something like a multiplier of 1.2x, because of a 2% difference between his target versus achievement was always opaque. You name the industry. You talk about banking and finance. When I sold insurance, I would find out if insurance policies that I had locked in, were actually applicable for my incentive 15 days after a month had ended. It was all manual. It still is manual. I mean, you look at the industry today, it's still manual. You talk about distribution. When we were distributing SIM cards in Vodafone or Airtel, when we were doing data networks, when it was all outsourced, there was absolute lack of transparency with regard to principal versus outsourced partner, wherein he couldn't make out whether what he has sold has been accounted in his favor. Because let's face it, it becomes particularly important for the distribution channels. There is no fixed retainer. There is no minimum guarantee. There is always this instance of what you sell, that much you'll make. And the guy doesn't know. The guy will not know till 15 days into the following month. But do remember, in distribution channels, he has a large sales force that he's running. It could be 5 people, it could be 150 people. It could be a telecalling setup with 300 people. It could be a retailer who has 5 sales staff in his store. But 5th of every month, he has to pay them salary. He needs to know how much money is coming, at least know how much money is coming in. Forget about transfer of money, but how much money is coming in. He would only find out 15 days later. And by the time he starts arguing about whether it is right, wrong, he's already at the next month end. You're losing time. That was one issue, transparency. The second was the plethora of data we had. In banking, you knew where a guy bought what. I mean, you were privy to that information. You know which stores he went to, what he bought, and what frequency he bought. You cut across to telecom in the distribution networks. When I started off in Airtel, we used to sell 1,000 SIM cards a month. When we actually hit the ground, in 6 months' time, we were selling 11,000 SIM cards every month, which was 600 a day across 300 sales force. And they were all incentivized on a SIM card that they sold. We used to spend 2 hours every evening on a conference call. Literally, I lived about 1.5 hours away from the office. So that 1.5 hours was covered with a conference call with 12 partners, my MIS guy, my sales team, all on a conference call discussing what number has happened for the day basis an Excel sheet that has been pulled till 6 o'clock in the evening. And logins happen till 12. Month ends were terror. We used to stand outside the activation office and we used to sit over there watching forms come in, count them off on literally tally marks and do it.
Yeah.
That's not optimum. That doesn't give you a sense of projection, doesn't give you a sense of forecasting. And trust me,
big waste of time.
Yeah, it's complete waste of time. It's complete waste of time on both sides.
Right.
Remember, if my team was selling 600 SIM cards a day in 8 hours, if they were wasting 2 hours on that, you're talking about an incremental at least 20% in my sales every day with the guys actually sitting on a phone call.
Yeah.
Just didn't make sense. And that brings me to the third point. One was lack of transparency for the individual, lack of transparency and optimum use of time for the organization. And when it's a distributed leadership wherein you have a retailer or you have a distributor, his sales team doesn't know what they're doing right. It's always restricted to the partner owner. Partner owner decides, मैंने 1 लाख बनाया है, 15,000 रुपए I will give to my team. Whereas the company as a whole has incentivized his salespeople. So the lack of transparency in market development funds. I think that was the other thing that really irked me, that it always happened post facto. There were post-mortem meetings. How many of us have sat in review meetings where the boss has said, पिछले महीने क्या हुआ था? I mean, and you have to give excuses कि नहीं, this happened, that happened, and it is all post-mortem. I think today automation plays a role. It's a sexy word to use. I mean, you can talk about automation. Way back, it was all about ERP, then it became CRM. Today, we're talking about automation in modules. But end of the day, I think Babul was talking about it. How is it specific to particular functions and it drives that business? There's a rationale, there is a method to the madness that there are customer relationship management systems. There are HR management systems which are very specific to those functions. Why not sales automation? We've done sales tracking. We've been doing sales tracking forever. We know exactly what route a boy takes on his outlet management or outlet activation. Why not incentivize him also on that? You've opened 75% of your outlets. And I'm going to stop there. Ajay, I'm going to talk for an hour. Well, it's a subject I'm very passionate about.
No, but so Ajay, you gave an interesting insight about 2 specific industries, which was BFSI and telecom. Sushil, I'm going to throw it to you, given your experience over and currently with J&J and over the last couple of decades. Is it very different in pharma, or are the pain points the same to this day? Have they been the same?
Yeah, so I'm aligned partially with Ajay, not fully. The reason is that fortunately, unfortunately, I worked for three big MNCs, Novartis, Nestle, and J&J. So in J&J, actually, we have a different platform. Like for price approval, we have a ESRA. For the goal setting and the tracking, we have a Workday. For hiring processes, we have a different platform. But it's still this particular platform is lacking. So I will say it's really a time to execute with excellence. So I'm totally convinced with partially part, yes. Lots of things, miscalculation, and of course, the transparency is lacking sometimes. So for execute to excellence, this platform is going to be a boon for the industry, any industry, not for the pharma, not for the devices and other industry, because incentive is the part which is overall 10% of the revenue for all the organizations, and that is a really a motivation factor for all the salesperson. So how can organization streamline compensation process? So the answer is simple: automation. And any size company can be affected with miscalculation. But when these type of insufficient hit enterprise size organization, so these manual errors can be devastating consequences. So I feel that what Ajay is really initiated, that is really very important. And what he said that many platforms are available, but this particular is lacking. And if we will have a more transparency, there will be a more business involvement for the salespeople, and there will be a better outcome, and there will be more motivation. So with Ajay, I am aligned that really, but in J&J, definitely still things are, I will say, it's good, but of course we are looking forward for excellent. The reason is that there will be a less time consuming, there will be a less outdated and error prone system will be there with automation, and which is really very important. So eliminate errors and risk brought about by spreadsheets, assist in sales and planning and optimize compensation plans faster. So everyone will be happy. That will be a win-win from both ends, from the management end, for the salespeople end.
Wonderful. Wonderful. You used the perfect segue for my next speaker. So Babul, he talked about this is an issue not just pharma faces, not just any industry. Any insight specific to this? Any difference of opinion here, or you also agree that while automation exists in all parts, somehow a huge chunk they seem to have missed out is incentive, sales compensation?
So Medin, I'll just take a step back. And if you look today, whether it is in large organizations like J&J, Pfizer, Dr. Reddy's, there's a separate incentive team and a compensation team. Now, if you look today, the whole purpose of this is to ensure that the sales people get their incentive on time, the calculation happens. But the larger goal here is motivating the sales team, because even today, if you look across the big MNCs, there are always issues on incentives and compensation. There, no matter what we have done so far, there is a leap of improvement to take place. Now, I'll give you a classical example in a mass market team. So that's a typical pharma model where you have around 300, 400 people on the sales on the front end, and they sell multiple products, not just one of an organization, which are mass market. So they're nothing to do with a particular super specialty. They go and meet multi-specialties. So they meet an orthopedics, they meet a CPGP, they meet a neurologist, etc. Each product has its own incentive, which is determined by the marketing team, which runs incentives and campaigns. And then you have overall monthly and quarterly incentive, which is the organizational based incentive. Now, as a rep, while the noise level is whichever brand helps you to sell the most, you will focus there. But what happens is you'll miss out on other incentives, which is typically linked to executing CMEs, running campaigns, customer conversions, etc. Number one. Number two is these sales team are running daily to meet at least 8 to 10 calls a day minimum. So their efforts is to generate sales, not to look into what I missed out. We still struggle to give them a real-time update as to where they stand, what do they do. As a result, the brand suffers. The brands which are doing very well and there is a demand in the market are doing well, and they will continue. But there are certain brands which are concept selling, which requires a little bit more focus on science. Once the sales team to improve their communication skills, that will continue to lag behind, because for the sales team, they have no clue what's the incentive there, how the campaigns are running. So I am more looking at both ends, because when I worked into medical devices and pharma, while medical devices is a little still easy as compared to pharma, because you had an 80, 90 people sales team at max. as compared to pharma, where one division had 300, 400, 600 people, depending upon the size of portfolio. You just miss out on creating a very interactive learning upgradation of the sales. It's about motivation. I still can give you in writing that every MNCs and Indian companies at the month end always sit down, and half the issues are on compensation and the closures on sales. Some of them are credit note related, some of them are missed out on numbers, wrong numbers, right numbers. They still are facing that challenge. And what happens is it impacts the sales team, the RSMs, NSMs, all levels of the sales verticals. And at the same time, the incentive team, rather than focusing on coming up with more and more good incentive, which is what right now the need of the hour is, they spend 80% of the time in solving the issues of the team. Absolutely. So coming up with the both end, if we are able to streamline rather than add more, it's saying that a sales team get a real-time update, 15 days, they come to know that this is what their goal is, this is what the coverage is, this is what the sales they are pending to do, either brand-wise or a holistic-wise, number one. Number two is a dashboard where they see that how each of the team members are faring, because that's a motivation. That's something that they want to see. Overall, how their group or an NSM and an RSM is facing, things will improve. Because I have worked across the COVID and I understand that a rep is no longer a rep now. Just going to a doctor, opening up an LBL and an iPad and expecting a doctor to give you sales is not going to happen. So there are things that the rep needs to improve. If this automation, and when I use the word automation, not just automating it, but making it more interactive to the sales team happens, you will see a very positive output, enabling the organization to perform well. So that's what an experience that we have seen.
I think a couple of points, Babul. I mean, I'm going to jump in over here, but I'm close to the heart. I did a summer project way back in MBA with WorkHard, where I worked as a medical representative to do a little bit of survey. Those guys have it tough, man. I mean, you're talking about an iPad today. They had those flip charts at that time. Yes. Jo bhi molecule bechna tha, you had to flip that chart, and you used to be given 2 minutes with a doctor during his lunch time, and 5 people would be allowed between 1 and 1:30. But it's amazing the way that the medical representative not only influences the doctors, not just prescribing, but his intellect with regard to new molecules, but also the sales for the surrounding pharmacies over there. And that's when I saw that was my first experience with the plethora of data that there is in pharma. Your market sizing per drug is in decimal points of, I think, 4 or 5 after the zero, and as a percentage point. It's mind-boggling. And that time, I think Oligipy and Metzer, O&M, used to publish those large journals that the marketing team would keep referring to per drug as to what the sales were. It's pharma.
So that's the advantage in pharma, where the data is there, just that the data converted into a nice strategy is still at that stage. Unlike medical devices,
spreading the data the right way, right?
Yes. Yeah. Because unlike medical devices, where at least coming from J&J knee and hip segment, we had limited data because there were not that much market research happening, because there were multiple schemes. You had the Ayushman Bharat, you had the institution, you had rural India, etc., etc. But the way IQVIA, IMS, or those data is done in pharma, we get an in-depth knowledge, state-wise, region-wise, dealer-wise, doctor-wise, specialty-wise. But how do we make that converted to a salesperson from an incentive, changing the behavior, make it much more productive? That's the curve that will start in the next 3-4 years for a pharma company.
True. We've actually got one excellent case where medical devices, not just sales, but the collection part, was driven by the CFO, because he said, collections, I'm giving credit of 60 days. I will incentivize guys who pay me in that credit period, and my cost of collections, I will translate into an incentive for them, over and above what they're getting. It's brilliant the way it can be done. Yeah. Pharma is really going places.
Ramanji, I know you have an interesting insight and a little story to share, specifically with the keywords that Babul just talked about, interacting with your sales teams, ensuring high engagement, motivating them. You were telling me about something interesting you came across.
Yeah, thank you very much. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, absolutely.
I think, thank you so much. I just heard all of you. It's fantastic to go back to basics. I have had experience of sales and marketing, so I can correlate things, how things are done from head office and how the implementation part takes place. I think I'll further build on what Babul just mentioned about the dashboards and the compensation, the stuff which we are doing. I mean, I can correlate. I mean, if you ask me, I have worked for 23 years in GlaxoSmithKline, where everything was already automated, very frankly. I mean, be it sales, compensation or even sales data, external data, internal data, everything was so organized. I mean, people used to get, the data on second basis actually. But as Babu just mentioned, many times on the month end, for example, if you're working on an incentive plan, you have an incentive for a quarter. But it's quite possible if you don't get the information on the last moment, you might lose out the incentive on. I mean, that was the one part which was missing in spite of being all this automation, but still there were a lot of stuff which happened. And when I look at the other company where I have now currently been come to, I have come to Cadila Pharmaceutical, and I'm looking after almost 17 countries, and all the countries are different. The way you interact with these people are different. I have no, very frankly, any automated system where I can measure the performance unless I get the sales data by month end, right? So we are in a process to create multiple dashboards where we track the performance, but you can just imagine we have almost 40, all those generic brands and 17 markets, including 200 reps. So we still are using spreadsheet. We are using spreadsheet. And there are a lot of error which happens when the marketing team and the MIS calculate things, very frankly. And it happens many times that people miss out their incentive maybe because of 1% or 2%, very frankly. So we are not able to give them on dot up-to-date information where they stand. And in fact, that's what challenge they also feel as well as face day in and out in terms of knowing the information, the real time, which is a very big challenge which we are facing at this point of time. Like Ajay also mentioned, we are working on dashboard so that we have one single structured format where we can give them some information. Okay, this is where you are, this is what you need to do so that you don't miss out compensation or maybe your incentives. But those processes are very, very tidy. I mean, it's very difficult to track. And I can imagine, because I have come from that environment to this environment, I can see the pain coming out of this. So I think what exactly I am looking into, I mean, for example, after going through this, couple of content, because this topic was totally out of, kind of thing, which for me, I have a core competence in marketing, but then I thought, let me just get back to my sales days. So what exactly reps are looking in, especially current situation when they are isolated, right? I mean, we are not talking to them day in and out. We are not meeting in person. And the information flow is not very frequent the way it has to be. You cannot just go to office motivation, kind of thing, say, let's do high five and all that. That all part is missing. So how do you motivate, I mean, remotely to all those 17 countries, people are sitting in those countries, is something, if you have something tangible to offer to them, right? And I'm sure we all will agree. Some might not would like to, say on this platform, but the money is a major factor for the salespeople. I will not rule out the importance of recognition, promotion, and other stuff, but then money is one factor which motivates them. But then if we can have those dashboards, if we have some automated system where we have, they can see the just one click of, stuff, and they can see where do you stand rather than waiting for the month, and that's going to help them a lot.
Absolutely.
So we are trying to manually do all the things right now, but then it's very, very tough.
Ajay, please note.
This is perfect. I am the remaining of this quarter. I'm only going to be talking to my co-panelists because I've got all their points and I can show them how I can meet their needs. My whole customer base is here. I'm happy. You don't have to refer to me ever again for this panel.
All right, we still haven't heard from two more of our panelists, Sumit and Dipen. So a lot has been talked about how clearly the one process that is not yet automated, but clearly is an issue, is incentive management and sales compensation. Would you guys like to add to this? Would you guys like to share some stories of how you've seen it work or it fail, possibly?
Yeah, sure. So, Medine, while we are talking about the sales incentive, I'm coming from modern trade experience, modern trade channel. Unlike the traditional trade where sales team, the team on the ground is doing all the sales, and at some point of time, in some form or the other, those sales data gets captured and one gets incentivized, one gets some reward out of it. But it is very different in modern trade. While the field force, those who are on ground, are not actually doing sales, but they are doing merchandising. Right. It works the other way around, like modern trade. The the key account managers or the head of modern trade, he gets the sales,
Right.
and the people on the ground are actually executing it. So it's
Absolutely.
just the other way around.
Right.
Now, how do you incentivize them? So it's not question of whether it is accurate, whether there is a transparency or not, whether they know their incentive or not, whether they are missing out or not. The question in modern trade is more about how do you design it? Is there a way to even incentivize the field force, because they are not doing sales, so we do not know their deliverables. So that's where this entire piece comes in handy, where there are different parameters where at the head office I would want my sales to be evaluated, and there are KRAs. For example, share of shelf.
Right.
How much share of shelf I am getting, my brand is getting in the stores, or what is the in stock, what is on shelf availability,
Absolutely.
or even the space that I am hiring. So is it being executed? So I would rather want to incentivize my team on ground on these parameters rather on the sales, because sales is something which someone else is getting.
Fair.
So if you don't have a tool, you actually cannot design an incentive program at all.
Absolutely.
And that's where these tools comes into picture, where you actually can design, forget about the accuracy and all, you can even design those. So those tools actually gives me the data sitting in HO to evaluate if my merchandiser on ground is doing what he's supposed to do.
Absolutely.
Apart from those attendance and taking selfie and all those stuff. But he captures the share of shelf, for example, or he captures the stock in stock. And this is how we have been, now we started designing this, while some of the companies like say Levers or P&G or Colgate have been using it for years. But some others and a lot of others were not using such tools in this channel, and there were no way of doing it. So lately we see this advantage where we have this technology, while I would say it is not as accepted as it is accepted in the traditional trade channel, but it has a much higher use case if you can implement, if we all can implement in this channel, where you can design and then you can motivate or you can get the better deliverables through such tools, and that's where I see a lot of use of this, and I think a lot of us have started using it, a lot of companies have started designing it. I personally feel there is a lot of scope to do. We are still not there, but at least there is a good progress there. These tools are available for this channel also.
No, so the first step to awareness is in fact identifying that there is a need for such a tool. And
absolutely,
like you said, we have finally come to saying, hey, we need it. And so you talked about some tools, Dipen, so I want you to focus on those, but very quickly want to bring Sumit in, who's been very quiet for 35 minutes of this conversation. Sumit, just before we move on to the next thing, which is what are some of these automation tools that people can use, would you like to add something basis your experience? I hope you're still on call. Sumit?
You're on mute, Sumit.
Can't hear Sumit. All right. In the meantime, while we try to connect back with Sumit, Ajay Suri, you've raised your hand. Do you have a question, Ajay? Would you like to ask the panel a question? Ajay, I think you're on mute. Are you trying to speak? Because you're on mute right now. Ajay Suri?
Ajay Suri, yes. I think he might be confusing with Ajay Shnoy.
Ajay Suri, do you have a question you'd like to ask our panel? Possibly raised his hand by mistake in that case. Sumit, do we have you back or have we lost you? We seem to have lost you.
I'm just checking, yeah.
No worries, no worries. Okay, no, this is wonderful. I mean, I'm quite amazed so far. So we've talked about very, very pertinent and important things.
Hello, sorry, I was muted. Sorry, Ajay Suri this side.
Wonderful.
Can I speak? Yeah, I just wanted to make a point. See, as far as automation is concerned, the issue which people like me, who are handling large teams with multiple brands, that we are facing is today. If you want to incentivize people, we have to use, very simple parameters. We cannot use, complicated, multiple parameters. There was a time, and most of us would agree, we use either, sales target, value sales, or you use unit wise sales, or you use product wise sales. And somewhere we are able to add, some other KPIs, limited KPIs, number of calls or display, whatever, my colleagues were mentioning. But as we move ahead, see, India is a vast country, and, products in different parts of the country require different type of KPIs. Brand managers want in one particular market, I want KOLs to be met and, KOLs to be engaged. In another market, I want, modern trade to be met. In other markets, I'm impacted by digital. So there are so many factors which are playing today. We need multiple KPIs to be measured, and different KPIs in different parts of the countries or different territories also. If you have 500 people team, you cannot have 500 different parameters if you are, you want to standardize your incentive schemes. But if you have this automation, you can have individualized, as we move ahead, we will have to move towards individualization of the incentives also, because the KPIs from one territory to other differ, which can get you the desired results. So I feel that is why, automation is very, very important as we move ahead. So that was a point which I wanted to make. There is a lot of individualization which is required for success of a brand if it has to become, a pan-country brand.
Absolutely.
No,
Thanks.
So your automation can enable customization, essentially.
Yeah. So customization is very, very important for any brand to be successful. Even if you are in a niche segment, I'll give examples of only pharma, oncology in Mumbai and oncology in Bathinda. You have an oncologist in Bathinda also. It is different. So you have to give different KPIs to your guy who is working these different markets. So, but it becomes very difficult to monitor, 300 different, ways of incentivizing people.
Absolutely.
So we need to customize. The brand managers want to customize, but the SFA teams cannot help. The incentive management teams cannot do that. So I think customization can also greatly help the success, and the motivation and interactive customization can be very, very useful for handling large teams.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Thanks.
That was wonderful, Ajay. Thank you so much.
And
Medini, we have Anup also raising his hand.
I was going to him next. Anup, you would like to ask a question or contribute something to this conversation? Anup, you are on mute.
Medini, if I may.
Yes, please, Babu, please. Go ahead.
So in fact, just to add to what Ajay said, like if you look at any, and since I and Ajay have worked in Pfizer, so we can correlate this out here. In any organization, you have multiple verticals. So you have super specialty verticals like oncology, rare disease, vaccines, etc. And then you have a mass market. So today the issue is that there is an overall organizational incentive, which is earmarked and referenced, where every sales team gets a minimum and maximum depending upon 100%. Number one, there is no customized incentive except for the brand incentive that a marketing person rolls out, okay, for the respective products. Overall, it still comes to the same organizational incentive. What the automation can and should do, and that is something which today the company is required, is scalable within organization. So how can an oncology business unit take your module versus what a mass market team can take the module? Because at the end of the day, certain parameters and KPIs will be same. Your call coverage, your primary, secondary data points, etc., will remain same. What will be customized is the business specific knowledge, where it will be much more scientific driven communication in oncology, a certain amount of a different way of doing some activities where you do with a very high end stakeholders, etc., as compared to a mass market.
Right.
This will help to be scalable not only within the organization, but as a person, whoever is looking from an automation standpoint at the company, the compensation, it's very easy for them to give away the right number of parameters or the points to each other team. Because the more we customize, and that is maybe my viewpoint, we end up more complicating things rather than keeping it a little bit streamlined. Where we say that these are my top 5 KRAs across organization, which is same. However, each BU might have 1 or 2 customization, which is depending upon the BU.
Absolutely.
That will be much more powerful, according to me, because then that will have a synchronization within the larger organization.
So then you have benchmark, and then you have customization basis function. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I think it's very pertinent. This dichotomy between over customization and confusing the salesperson. End of the day, if you have a generic program that's running and you have focus areas, I think that's where. So one thing that I wanted to talk about was which Dipen also brought out. I think as an adjunct, automation is a great buzzword, but I think we cannot forget the basics. There are some brick and mortar rules that will never change. You could have startups doing everything today. I mean, for example, you take your big baskets of the world. What are they doing? They're doing exactly what your local grocer used to do. They've made it on a platform that makes it easy. The customer experience is better. Nobody has to go downstairs to buy from the mandi. It comes to them. The customer experience is improved, but the basic building blocks have not gone away. Availability of produce, freshness of the produce, quality of the produce, that has not gone away. Those basic building blocks. So the similar thing in sales also. You take Coca-Cola, for example. They brought automation in by way of their order management system.
Right.
Great insights. They suddenly found that across 1.5 lakh retailers across the country, they knew exactly what each one was stocking from their products. And they went back to brick and mortar. Yeah. They said, okay, we will invest in a 300-member telecalling team with everybody has a calling pattern for a set number of retailers to drive the verticalization of their products within that one retailer. So there you have to bring that mix between automation, or rather over automation, and also bring in your brick and mortar, bring in your basic principles, because business is not going to change. We have to make turnover, reduce costs, increase bottom line. That is all I will do.
Sorry, Ajay, I'm going to interrupt because you talked about Coca-Cola, and we have Saikat, who is from Bayer, which is as large an enterprise. Saikat, would you like to add to this? Are there any automations that Bayer is currently using specifically for sales team, for trackable KPIs, keeping in today's so far conversation in mind? Oh no, did I lose Saikat as well?
I think we lost Saikat.
Oh no. Okay, let's go to Sumit then. Sumit, are you here?
Yeah, am I audible now?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, Sumit.
Oh, hi. Yes, so I think I missed out some key points, but overall I was there. So taking up what Ajay was just mentioning. So I'll just share my experience of right from the marketing into the sales. So sales every month, every quarter, every year, what I'm struggling as a leader is to inspire success.
Right.
And this generation is very simple. What's in there for me?
Absolutely.
Is something that we are always concerned about. So since I've worked in marketing, I am able to make the Excel sheets and project, boss, in next 1 month, 1 quarter, you're likely to earn this much, etc., etc. Right. Which I'm able to do. But I have my counterparts who've throughout worked in sales in other zones. They always seek help, right, from the marketing team or even from me sometimes. So I think there is definitely a need. There is definitely a need of automating this particular thing. It should be handy. It should be on an app. It should be readily available. I mean, whatever it takes. But one thing I would also like to highlight on the other end of the automation, which is human touch.
Right.
So, for example, I don't prepare an Excel sheet, and it's readily available for them on the app, and I take it as a leader, granted that okay, these guys already know what they're going to earn. These guys already know what is in store for them. That can create a disconnect.
Okay.
So, as Ajay was just mentioning, that why a brick and mortar as well as a IT oriented model balance is working out well, exactly in this way, automation as well as a tinge of human touch and interaction, talking about what is happening on the app or what is the amount or what is the recognition around it. I think we should not forget that in spite of automation.
No, I think that's fair. Because the minute that happens, then the sales team, then the teams think, oh, it's additional work for me and it's moving me farther away from my organization.
Yes.
So I sorry, maybe I'm just
Absolutely,
because it's quite interesting. Sumit, you have touched that one. I 100% agree. Yes, this is what happens actually. But human touch cannot be removed at all from, even if you go for complete automation. Because the most important is whatever algorithm, whatever automation AI you develop, you need to have a basic data analysis, right? So I can give you one example. Like in GSK, we used to have complete doctor coverage, whatever the rep is doing daily in the field, how many doctor he has met, what is the call average, what is the frequency, every data we used to get from the automated system, and we used to share every week with the rep. Okay, this is what you have done. These are the doctors which are missing. This is where you need to focus more so that you don't miss out on your coverage. But when I came here, we saw it was not there. It was all manual. Because I mean, managing a market like Africa, where the net and internet connectivity is quite poor, and people are not well to do in terms of having gadgets, I think we face that issue. But slowly we have introduced one system, Fizzy, which is a software, which is an automated process where they have to feed the information. For example, customer list. It is only one time. So I'm coming back to the human touch. They have to fill up the information at least once so that we have a complete database with us. Only then you can build up your automation on based of that. Second, when you calculate incentive, even if your automated process is fully foolproof, it's one of the best in the system, but still you need to verify that. You still need to check with the people. There might be some error where there must be some unavoidable environmental circumstances which you need to consider, right? So I agree with you, Sumit. I mean, human touch cannot be ignored. It's very much there, and it has to be part of that automated process. Sorry, Medini, you were saying something.
Absolutely not. No, that's wonderful.
No, I think Medini, sorry, I'm going to cut you off. But Sumit, I think that whole human touch piece, I think, is another facet of what I was talking about, that we cannot forget our basics. Automation can work to a certain extent, but it cannot be robotic. It cannot.
I'll give you all the credit. I was inspired by your talk. And
no, Sumit. I think it's brilliant that you brought up that topic, because as sales leaders, we always face this dilemma. Do we keep pushing our top performers, or do we focus on our bottom performers, the average performers and the below performers? It's very easy. HR will tell us bottom 5%, put them on PIP. Your mid segment, you budget saying that they will only go in a certain direction, and you keep pushing your top performers. Or then you have the leaders who are absolutely focused on the guys who are constantly trying to achieve that 75% to 80%, and your top performers feel that अरे इतना काम करता हूँ, पूरा revenue लेके आता हूँ, यहाँ पे कोई recognition नहीं मिल रहा है, मैं दूसरी company में चला जाता हूँ. And they will go for peanuts. They'll go for 10%, 15% increment in salaries they move. But I think where you bring in a beautiful synergy of automation and humane basics is what you can derive from that automation. Who are your consistent top performers? How do you consistently reward them? If it's a pat on the back, they're getting money end of the day, but you still give them the pat on the back. Who are your consistent bottom performers who that one word will take them to the next level? That we cannot forget. I don't think automation, we cannot go down the path of robotics. I mean, AI, you still need a medical representative to stand in front of the doctor, sweltering heat or freezing cold, and tell him about the latest device that is available, the latest molecule that's available, the latest drug that is available. And the doctor depends on him. You need that person, and that person is human at the end of the day. You can
absolutely. This beautifully puts rest to that argument saying, is too much automation bad because will I lose my job? No. At the end of the day, automation is here to make our lives easy, not obsolete. It is so. Yeah, no, that's wonderful. I want to.
So just one point I'd just like to add here. So what I derived out of, I also prepared some dashboards. I mean, semi-automation, if you can say, not even a 25% automation. So that actually gave me more time for interaction.
Exactly.
With people, right? So that is where I think a huge role of getting that ready material, getting that ready reckoner, getting that tools to segment, as you were just mentioning, or to even design a specific customized outcome incentive or a program is something which will be very, very helpful.
Absolutely.
The theory of recency doesn't apply over here. All of us have appraisal systems towards the end of the year. The guys who have done the best in the last 2 months are always top of mind.
Yeah.
But when you have a system that consistently shows you how a person has been performing month on month, it is a simple conversation. Numbers hai yahan pe. let's talk about something else. You don't
So
talk
Ajay,
about,
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
yeah. So that theory of recency also gets, taken away from the entire thing, and everybody gets a fair shake in the entire game.
Yeah.
So sorry,
Ajay.
I interrupted because this is one of the best things which I've seen in GSK. I mean, they will not wait for the year. Every quarter, every 2 months rather, the subordinate and the manager sit together. They chart, they figure out all what good, bad, whatever has happened. They document the paper and upload in the system, which is there, right?
Correct.
So and each quarter they have a weightage. It's not annual weightage they consider. So every quarter they have a weightage, so that even if you have done bad in the last quarter, your quarter 1, 2, 3 rating is not disturbed at all. So when they take the final rating, of course, the manager, you understand, all are human, so they definitely have their biases and all that stuff. But still, to make it more transparent, the system is already there. So chances of biasness is absolutely reduced to zero.
And that's an interesting
Raman,
point to bring up.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were saying something, Babu.
Yes, no, I'm just saying, I was just listening to the human touch and AI, little different viewpoint. I would still believe, and that's something which I have experienced, is the human touch will no longer be required to do the mundane and the administrative work. There will be a human touch which will be more strategic, helping the organization, putting in resource. Automation will do the entire mundane and the accountable job. So when I still see Sumitji and Ramanji trying to still say that there might be a human touch to it, I personally believe that if there is a process in place and if the people are following the kind of protocols and process of putting the right data, the chances of making mistake will reduce, which which ways today we are seeing, let's say 15% deviation, it might go down to 2%, 3%. There will be deviation, no doubt about it that it will be zero. But the people who are looking at the compensation or the sales managers, the RSMs, the marketing, their time, which is today used in just challenging the data or trying to find out why this incentive is not there, that will be utilized in forming strategies, execution, and helping the sales team and the organization to do well. And that is the need where every organization are looking for. Coming to the cost perspective, what Ramanji said, that he is absolutely right. But if we are able to put on that by investing on an automation, what is the upside improvement on sales, upside improvement on the overall parameters, and show them via the use cases that this is what you piloted in one of the biggest markets or a team having 300, 400 people. This is what the revenue increase or per capita revenue per sales team increase. That will have a direct correlation to a larger commercial heads who has the authority to take the decisions. Because for them, they would rather say that, see, the biggest cost in P&L today is the field cost. Let's be very transparent here. It's not the cost of marketing, it's not the cost of anything else. It's the field cost. Now, anyone who wants to hire, they want to look as how do I optimize that hiring? So whether you do 1 crore per territory target, whether you do 2 crore, depending upon the industry, etc., they want to utilize how do I squeeze the maximum revenue from a sales. Now, that's something, if that can be taken away and say that how do I have my sales team empower them so that they, instead of 1 crore, deliver me 1.25, and then incremental 25 lakhs, I'm okay to spend 10% of that in automation.
Absolutely.
That is something which will work better rather than going only from an incentive calculation perspective, because that's how the organizations are going. And right now in startup, I can see we have automated the entire system. So we have used multiple softwares. Indegene is one of them, where we have completely automated end-to-end. And we are seeing the power of automation, where today what we used to coordinate morning calls, daily calls with RSMs, NSMs, all that thing is gone. The calls are there, but the discussion is not an incentive on the targets, etc. It is about how are you doing your days, how are you converting doctors, etc. And that's where the human touch on this accountable mundane work has gone. Maybe 5% of the month we spend, but 90% is still on my strategies, execution, and the outcomes.
I think very well said, Babu. I think that's perfect. I mean, you really hit the nail on the head, wherein you're talking about take away the mundane, the numbers are what they are, you can't argue with it. Let's get on with the business at hand. Let's see how we can drive forward. Beautiful. I think that's perfect.
Absolutely. Guys, I want to now, a few people might, I mean, we've just used words like part automation, some tools. I actually want to now put you guys in the spot and say, Babul, we'll start with you. Dipen will come to you. Then Sumit, Ramanji, Ajay. What are some of these tools that your companies are currently using, leveraging, that you visibly seen a difference in your sales team, performance, motivation, attitude, whatever part of the process they're automating? What are these tools?
So at least I'm using 3 current tools right now, Medini. One is the HR one, where the entire HR system is integrated,
Of course.
where you and every organization will have a different platforms to work with.
Right.
We are using Salesforce right now, which is connecting with our channel partners like a CRM machine, which we
Right.
are all using from this thing. Third is the Lead Square. So Lead Square is the third company where this kind of interactive customization is what we are looking. So, and we have mapped the last 6 months performance versus 6 month performance post automation, whether it is plant automation, because I also take care of the plant. So the plant team, the manufacturing, the kind of forecasting, the kind of wastage that is takes place versus what it is, we see at least 20 to 25% cost saving in things, and at least 10% improvement in what the sales team today are able to do, what they could not because they just fought with the HRs or the finance team that this is what it is. We are still in early stages, but being a startup, it gives us the flexibility to scale it up, to keep on having more automation. So that's where, we have used this 3. This huge need in the market, Medini. So if you all can put across a nice package and show the upside, that what is the percentage saving, not on the cost, see, because you any which is will pay the cost, but if you can justify the cost with what the improvement parameters are.
Absolutely.
And trust me, there is a huge demand, because I genuinely believe, and we are seeing that just by going to a doctor and trying to sell or trying to wriggle out 10 doctors a day, it's not working any longer.
Yeah.
Because like you, there are 50 other companies doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But if you're able to make your rep or your sales team engage in a very meaningful way, make them part of the overall campaign. Because I heard, I think so, Sumit or Sushilji talking about HO campaigns driven, not connecting at the ground level. And that happens. There's an excitement 1 week, 2 weeks, after that, everything fizzles down and nothing happens out there. But if you are able to connect with the sales team, no matter how small or big the team is, making them remind that these are the 2-3 KPIs that you are, we are seeing a strong execution, which was lacking before. We saw execution first 15 days, the campaign created halla gullas, but then eventually eased off just because it just got over.
No, absolutely.
So that is something which I'm seeing. And I can tell you with my experience that automation has been successful. So that's something which is happening.
That's wonderful, Babul. Ajay, please note.
Yes.
Dipen, you mentioned a couple of tools as well, and I'm coming back to you specifically because, like you said, yours is not a traditional sales person motivation, but it's a trade channel. Some of the tools that you've interacted with that have really helped.
Yeah. So Medini, so like I said, I'm talking about this modern trade.
Yes.
Like you all would know. So modern trade, we are talking about merchandising and not sales.
Yes.
So we are using it. Currently, it is a merchandising module of any SFA that you have in the market. Some of them, they offer this merchandising module, and that's one of those we are using as a tool for capturing those parameters which are important for modern trade.
Right.
And for the team. So that's what we are using. And after using them, now we are able to create those incentive structure, the incentive, different kind of mechanism for incentivizing this merchandising team and not the sales team.
But that is a manual effort currently. The creation is still a manual effort. So
some bit yes, but at least by using this tool, we are able to capture the data that we want. The question here is not about those analyzing and accuracy and all. The question is more about capturing itself.
Right.
It is more basic than the traditional trade has. And like we see, modern trade is lagging behind a lot in India as far as the comparison of different both the trades are concerned. So likewise, even in this automation tool also, it is pretty lagging, it looks. Right. And currently, the tool that anybody has is any additional merchandising module sitting inside an SFA. Right. So a lot of things are missing, a lot of understanding, even technically, a few things are not available or facing problem. But at least there is a good starting which is happening, and that's what we have been able to use and create something.
Wonderful. Sushilji, I mean J&J, you also said that har jagah automation hai, but not for the sales compensation piece. So is there, should I assume that there is no automation currently at all for that particular piece, motivating sales teams and driving business there?
Yeah, so particular for the compensation point of view, we have a third party SKP, which is doing all the manual work. So come to the point of the pain. Actually, we have to create some tool which should have a qualitative and quantitative both performance tracking, because in medical devices also every surgery matters in orthopedic and trauma. So there is ICs or individual contributor supposed to be give the incentive for each and every surgery. So it should be a tool balance. It should be in the form of gadget or app, that at the end of the week, every individual contributor or a salesperson should have that how much incentive now he is going to earn at the end of the quarter. So all these key points are really very important when it's come to medical devices, because it's a combination of qualitative and quantitative both. So which is really very important, because we can't, even if some person is doing a local level some program or CME or some, you can say, engagement program, so that also have some incentive part of the total incentive. So it should be a good combination. It should be, so right now it's like that what Mr. Raman said, that so in J&J also we have a very transparent, but of course not excellent
100%.
process oriented incentive automation. The reason is that we have to wait for a third party, that they have to calculate in a old Excel format and all. Then as a sales head, we have to confirm the entire thing. We have to cross check with other internal stakeholders, the data is correct, accuracy is fine or not. So if as a company, you guys have something which is really very transparent and self-calculated in terms of both parameter, qualitative and quantitative, that's going to be a great boom in a company like J&J, where we have a different verticals, and in our devices only we have almost 1,000 employees, and you can imagine the amount of incentive disbursement we used to do annually. So if this is going to work, that is going to help in a other sector of pharmaceutical and consumer also. So these are the few key points which is really very important. But of course, combination of both is really important when it's come to devices.
Balance scorecard, yeah.
Ajay,
So Medini.
Yes, Ramanji, sorry.
Sorry, Sushil has spoken. It's a beautiful point. I couldn't stop myself. So Sushil, I can understand. Look at the company like J&J, and still he has that challenge. So I was going through a report from IBM where they have done a survey, and it indicates that more than 75% of organizations in India, I'm talking about, where the the number of employees in the range of 1,000 to 2,500. 75% people are still using spreadsheets.
Yes.
To manage the compensation.
Yes.
I mean, even for 2,500, I mean, when I look at my team, we have almost 200 reps across and some country manager put together, so 250 people. I mean, I find it so difficult because we are managing manually with the help of MIS person. I mean, even that is not accurate. I wonder how it really working. I mean, I'm coming to Sushil, what you said, in J&J, you are facing this challenge. I'm thinking of 75% companies in the range of 1,000 to 2,500 employees. They still use spreadsheet compensation basis.
And and we have market research that tells us 80 out of 100 Excel sheets have errors in them.
Yeah,
now
absolutely.
Imagine the catastrophe of events you're setting yourself for, with this. Ajay, this is the perfect segue. Now over to you.
I've been jumping in my seat, but seriously, gentlemen, I cannot thank you enough for the insights that you've given, which are something like, I'm glad we're recording this session, and I'm actually going to send out notices to all of you for you to sign, saying that we can use these details in our advertising, for the simple reason that you are actually quantifying what we formulated as a hypothesis 2 years ago. So when our founder started creating this product, he thought these are the pain points that a sales team could face. And you're actually voicing them out in a very succinct fashion. Point number one. I think I'll quickly get you through some of the points. I've been taking down some points with regard to what you've been talking about at a high level. I think starting from designing of campaigns that Dipen was talking about, communication of those campaigns so that everybody knows what they are gunning for, what they're running for. Constant reminders that what are they really working for, especially at the times in the month where, mera ek dhasu deal aane wala tha, nahi aaya, I'm demotivated. get back into the saddle? What is it that is going to drive you as a sales guy? That's the whole communication piece. And of course, the whole human touch about the manager reaching out at the right time, knowing when the guy is failing, when the guy is close to achieving, all that, the communication piece. So that's one part of it. I think what is really revelating from all you guys is your idea of real time. And I really appreciate it. When you go to a junior guy today and you tell him, and I kid you not, 23, 24-year-old guy, when you tell him real time, he says, "Isi second mein. I want to see it this second." Like Ramanji was talking about, in GSK, they advanced their annual appraisals by ensuring that every 2 months, they graded people. So there were 6 pit stops that a person went through. They reduced 12 months to a 2-month period. And it is not only about transparency. It gave the person an opportunity to improve. He was not suddenly caught out in March saying that he's planning to buy a house and suddenly he finds that uska rating 5 mein se 2 hai because he did badly in the last quarter. But it is a more balanced approach. But that is real time for them. Real time, I think, is a matter of relativity. But what you were doing in 12 months, you're now doing every 2 months. Insurance companies, you were talking about 200 reps, Ramanji, and you're talking about J&J. Insurance companies run 1,50,000 advisors every month. They have a biggest problem of activation rates, which means how many of those agents are active in any month. You name an insurance company, you can throw a stone and they will be between 11 to 15%, which means out of that effort that has been put to recruit 1,50,000 people, not more than 20 to 25,000 people are driving sales for them on a month-to-month basis. And this is not even a consistent base. This is a constantly switching base. And they are very fickle. Jahan pe zyada paisa milega, wahan pe brokerage karenge. That is another aspect wherein large teams are disengaged because they have no information flow coming in over there. And their biggest grouse, you log in an insurance form on the 15th of a month, till the 15th of next month, you will not find out. Because I've seen today, we do business with insurance companies. Every day, we get 20 lakh lines of data, individual rows of data into our system. Imagine what the MIS guy is going through at the month end. They spend 5 days just getting the data together, then creating the pivot tables, then doing a VLOOKUP, and then assigning it to the agents, and then doing the verification. You're talking about a whole 30-day period, which goes into just payouts for your previous months. Where is the motivation? Where is the drive? Which is why you'll see 25,000 people who do business this month. They'll wait for their money the next month. In that month, fortunately, there are 25,000 other people to come in and do that business. That's the other part. So I love the fact that you admit to the fact that real time is relative to what it used to be. 1 month, if you're doing it every month, can you do it every day? Can you do it every week? That is more real time than what it used to be. In some companies, for 200 reps, for example, you can do it on the minute. Some pharma companies who have 1,000 dealers or 1,000 sub-distributors, we do it by the minute. But it's always a backward integration. How quickly can your order management system bring in the data? For distributed networks, you're talking about collections as a big piece. Collections is something that is also important. You can sell 10 crores worth, but if that 10 crores doesn't come into the bank, it's not worth selling. A sales guy's job only finishes when the money's in the bank. Collections information is never real time. You have a 30-day bucket, you have a 60-day bucket, you have a 90-day bucket, you have a bad debt bucket. You want to bring in money from each one of these buckets. So it's a reconciliation effort that happens once a day. That becomes real time for them. They were doing it once a month. Now they're doing it once a day. That itself is real time. So that's another aspect. With regard to balanced scorecards, I think that is utopian. Absolutely utopian. You have quantitative, you have qualitative. Can you marry the two? If you can marry the two, job done. I mean, then there is no absolutely, like Babul was saying, human interaction goes down into आगे क्या करना है, पीछे का क्या है वो तो छोड़ दो, वो तो record हो गया है and it's all done. Even on merchandising, a lot of your SFAs today are giving you optical readers that give you space utilization, number of SKUs on your shelf. What is the even your POPs that you put up? How much of it is covering the frontage of the store? Have your guys achieved that percentage? They're doing it using optical recognition. We are capturing data. Every one of us has been capturing data way back from 2004, 2005 in some form or the other. How we've utilized that data, I think, is something that is a very, very apt perspective. Now, I am not going to do a hard pitch on Compass, but I can only give you one bottom line. On a calculation piece, on a real-time basis, relative real-time basis, on veracity of data, cutting down your operational effort in generating those incentives, bringing to bear communication which is very succinct, direct, in place, and more importantly, focused communication. You could have a developing market, you could have a developed markets. Ramanji is handling 17 markets. They could have been various stages of evolution from their product. Our system allows for that dissection very, very simplified, without any IT tech change request, nothing, in the hands of an operator. He can diversify, bring in weightages across various markets. We do it for cement companies, for example. We do it for a pharma company. We do it for the BFSI segment like crazy. BFSI segment has got, at least in wealth management, 13 products with 5 variations. And then across that, differentiated markets. There they are able to very, very defined run a program. If Ajay belongs to Bagalkot, vis-a-vis Medini from Bangalore, the Bangalore person will have a lower weightage on generating mutual funds, whereas Ajay in Bagalkot, for every rupee that he generates, will get a higher percentage of revenue over there, because the effort also is recognized by the market. These are things that platforms like Compass absolutely help.
And one more thing, sorry Ajay to interrupt, but I think Babul talked about it, a handheld which your sales team, your fleet on street can perpetually track, look at and say, hey, mera itna milestone bacha hai, yaar, itna nahi kiya, ya hey, Ajay from Bagalkot is number 1, but if I sell 4 more devices today, I will be number 1 on the leader. It's access to all of that on your handheld, right?
And that brings
So,
me to the
Ajay,
point. Yeah.
Sorry, just one thing. I was just, waiting to understand, like today, when you are saying that you have worked across cement, the Compass has been there.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you, when we look at the healthcare industry, whether it is medical devices, and maybe Raman, Sushil, you can add your thing. There is already an established IT system. There's already established infrastructure in place, which has not evolved the way it has to evolve, because India is always digitally behind as compared to the other markets. And healthcare in particular is 10 steps behind than anywhere else. And I'll be very honest with you.
Yeah, we throw money at people. We want more people.
So irrespective, the way healthcare could have been AI driven, it could have been much more destructive. COVID has brought that shot. Otherwise, it would have still been 5-6 years behind what it is. So today, the biggest challenge, at least from the heads or the commercial people, is how do we integrate all the technology together? Because having multiple customized AIs, so you will have your own solutions. There'll be a different solutions on CRM. There's a different solutions on something else. Will lead to a very mishap internally, because you have limited team controlling everything.
Yeah.
So what's the future wherein we look into a one-stop solution where at the end-to-end, there are certain 3-4 important aspects, whether it is your creative incentive, connect with the sales team, whether it is your CRM, whether it is your ERMs, whatever we have, where everything amalgamates into one backend, which is then being done, because that is where the scalability and receptiveness of all top companies will come into picture.
That's
because
very,
right now,
very fair point, Babul. I mean, the point is, you also bring up a interesting fact that large companies today have embarked on this journey of automation in various aspects of their business right from the early 2000s. We started with as simple as Tally. We moved from a register book to Tally to do our accounting, because for us, we're Indian. We need to see the money in the bank. And if we can recognize that money, we're good. So that's why Tally did brilliantly well. They moved from a ledger system and they automated the entire ledger system. Beyond that, so that your finance system started getting automated. Then came in the ERP boom. Everybody said we have to do enterprise resource planning. Nobody knew what it really meant, but it was a sexy word to use. So SAPs and Oracles of the world, IBMs just drove that ERP business, which started, changing the way that business was carried out. You suddenly had to log in and order, but it was more about recognition. Then switched across to the new gen, wherein we started bringing in customer relationship management. In marketing also, there was some automation that came in with regard to campaign management in B2C. With regard to Salesforce, They brought in Salesforce automation, which was tracking of people, understanding where they are, if they're on their routes. Big one was when CRMs came in to track the BPOs. So on the BPO system, you needed to know how many calls were being made. So auto dialers came in over there. So ultimately, what has ended up is an amalgamation of hierarchy systems across your enterprise, each one doing its one specific function. And each company that is launching new products also is very, very specific. That's one reason wherein when we thought about this product like Compass, and we envisioned how it has to roll out in the market, we knew we couldn't go back to organizations and say that, okay, now you need to install a system in your place that will give us this data. We identified what are the key sources of data that are available. The number one source of information today is an Excel sheet in all organizations. Sir, you said 75%. Please remember, it said 75% plus. 90% of the organizations, whatever scale and size, are using Excel sheets. Number one. Number two, sources of data which are relevant to a salesman is very clear. One is the HR system, which shows that he's still an employee of the company. And what is his designation? Who are the people who report to him? And what is his target for the month and target for the year? The HR system. Everybody has an HRMS system in place. If they don't, they have a master sheet of users. Number two system that they use is the order management system, because finance drove automation. Finance said, मेरा तो bank account का तो completed है tally के साथ, ERP लगा दिया, order management system लगा दो. Order management system is the second, which is your transactional servers. The only adjunct to transactional servers are your refund or your collection servers, which are there, which finance keeps separately because that runs as a batch process. And the third one is your CRM, your customer relationship management, which is Salesforce.com, your LeadSquare, Close.io, HubSpot, which recognizes the effort that a salesperson is putting in, identifying opportunity, building the pipeline. Our system seamlessly connects to all of this. Yeah. We say, you tell us what your source of data is. 9 out of 10 companies come and tell us, boss, IT doesn't have the time. We will give you an Excel dump. You just upload that dump and you take it from there. We're happy to do it. We do it on Excel. We give them SFTP saying you dump it in a folder. It will automatically pick up from there. Headers are consistent. It runs the data. It literally what data comes in goes into the system and runs it. Absolutely possible. But that is where we're very flexible. So Babul, absolutely pertinent point. The fear is if anyone comes into this business and says, I will do everything, he will fail, boss. Because he will be a jack of all trades, master of none. Because CRMs, there are specialists. You can't beat Salesforce today. For a large organization,
correct,
for a geographically distributed organization, Vodafone, for example, we used to have accounts that were headquartered, say, for example, Accenture was headquartered out of France. There was a global account manager who managed Accenture across the globe. Accenture in India was headquartered in Bangalore. So someone in my team was the national account manager for Accenture India. All business of Accenture India flowed into my manager with an upward flow into the global account manager sitting out of France. So he had a visibility, and all happened only on Salesforce.com. Nothing else. He created an opportunity, he had visibility to it. So you have to be very specific about what is the problem you need to solve. I have a lot of customers coming and telling me, "Arey, tum to incentive karte ho. Do SFA also." No? SFA is a whole different animal. It is an input mechanism. Ours is a display mechanism. Ours is an output mechanism. Ours is the kind that motivates the salesperson. I'm not an order management system. I tie up with people who are into order management. Bizom, for example, great proponent in the FMCG business. Those guys, I mean, Lalit and team are rocking the market with regard to their order management system. People are copying them. And these guys are a startup out of Bangalore, well-funded, but brilliant ideation. People have approached him and said, why don't you do an incentive system? He said, no, I'm an order management guy. I will manage your orders. You want incentives? I will bring a module in from Compass and we'll add it to our product very seamlessly. So the data from here goes in here and your output comes up. Very simple. But that ecosystem integration is an extremely important point, especially with legacy systems in place. One of my customers that we've just closed works on Microsoft Dynamics. What does he sell? Lathe machines, grinding machines, and milling machines. 45-year-old company. He has Microsoft Dynamics and on-prem device. He says, I have 500 people in the field. Can you put sales incentive automation? But my data will come from Microsoft Dynamics, which is on-prem. We connect to it. Take the data in real time. His service person goes to fix a grinding machine, closes it on his service app. Automatically, he gets his incentive recorded on his system.
And actually, that brings me to the point that Sumit talked about, which was the dashboard, right? If you can have access to a dashboard that can give you relevant, insightful information that you as a manager, sales head require, you can save up and free up so much of your meaningless calls and meetings and actually go in for strategy and the way forward and forecasting and free up time to do the actual stuff as opposed to the mundane sifting through.
And I think it's about the relevance of data. You can't just show a guy everything available.
Absolutely.
Yeah, too much data also kills them. So dashboards, like Sumit was saying earlier, they have created dashboards, and he says it's only a 25% automation, but it's a huge step forward where a person actually recognizes where they stand vis-a-vis other people, what more they need to do to rise in that leaderboard, because that recognition is also important to them. And those leaderboards, dashboards, visual representation in the whole gamification piece. People think gamification is about playing games. It's about using game-like elements, telling people what they've achieved now, here and now, where they stand with their peers. That's the big one. I think the mix of automation, engagement, relevance of information, that drives sales brilliantly.
Okay, guys, I'm sorry, Ajay, I think we'll connect with Ramanji, Sushilji, Dipen, Babul, all of them separately for sure. We have 5 minutes left. We've got Ganesh, you've dropped something on chat. Would you like to unmute yourself and just add to this conversation?
Yeah, very good evening. Right now I'm in the field. Okay, this morning I happened to be in one of the important institutes in Bangalore. I happened to meet one of the colleagues from a multinational company. Now, in the last few years, there has been a geotagging system pitched in, right? I had worked in multinationals for almost close to 13, 14 years. Now I'm in a regional-based company. The interesting thing over here is what I could observe is, he has reported the call. He took a selfie, synced the image to the iPad, and then provided that he has already reported. And it's a government institution. And the beauty is, I should really appreciate, he has worn the tie, taken a snap. So we are also busy meeting the HODs, right? And the beauty, we should really appreciate that colleague. He was in the institute, moving around with the doctors, made all his call, gave the odd copies of the inputs provided by his head office. And still is, even after I moving out, he met few other doctors. So this is one such example. But now I represent a smaller company. I worked for multinationals earlier. Now, along with my brand driver, usually we address our medical representatives as brand drivers rather. We continuously put our efforts. If we try to snatch even 0.1% of the market share of these established brands, so like us, consider that 10 more companies try to snatch the business or the market share of almost 0.1% into 10. So it's almost close to 1%. So do we have any solution from business automation or any other methodology where we can arrest this?
Question open to the entire panel.
I think I'll answer that question first with regard to, you guys said you're from GSK. My summer project in MBA was because GSK medical representatives went on strike in the year 2000. And my project was titled whether medical representatives can be replaced by distance marketing. Ganesh, to answer your question, no level of automation, no level of inputs, information technology, whatever you do, can replace that very important person called a salesperson. A salesperson worth his salt. Like I always tell people who are not in sales, you have to be born into sales. You cannot learn sales. It has to be inborn. Just like not everybody can do marketing. There is a left brain and there is a right brain. The marketing guys are very, very creative. They talk 30,000 feet in the air. The guy on the ground is the sales guy. And a sales guy, you have to be born into that job. You need to have the gift of the gab. You need to be able to think on your feet. You're sitting in front of a doctor. If you are the kind who are saying, I want 0.1%, people will be, some people from new age companies will be saying, ye kya 0.1% bol raha hai? We are looking at 30% market share. 0.1% in pharma is massive. It's multiple 100 crores that you're bringing in. And I see, you are a sales guy. You are thinking in how to take over that market by being on the ground. You can't replace that with anything. No matter what innovation, you cannot replace it. It is only how you can enable the guy. How can you make him feel good? How can you make him feel worth it? That he is, literally, he should feel happy that aaj itna kamaya, I can now, instead of Royal Stag, I can have signature whiskey in the night with all my friends. That's a sales guy. There's no replacement to it.
Yeah, see, I wanted a reflection of my own thought. And I'm happy that it's also bouncing back with the same answers. And thank you for that.
We're talking to sales guys here. We will never say replace us with automation.
Because I am seeing the best of both worlds, both in marketing as well as in sales. Right. Thank you, Ajay.
Thanks, Ganesh. Thanks.
Thank you, Ganesh.
Hi,
So
Mr. Ajay.
Ganesh, just to build on what Ajay just mentioned, I think it is too early to comment on this one aspect which I have already gone through. During my last stint in Poland for setting up a digital hub for GlaxoSmithKline, we had some of the off-patent brand in Europe where we were never doing anything. I mean, we never used to have a sales force for these people. There's no marketing, nothing happens on those brands. So what we did, we set up a digital hub where we had some 10-15 people from the local market. And we created a digital journeys for all the doctors in almost 17 or 18 countries in Europe. So we try to, I should not use the word, but then it is just a reflection. It's a non-rep scenario. But this is done basically for those brands where we don't promote the brand, we do not have marketing support. It was driven only through digital channels. So all those 10-15 people who were reporting to me, we used to have a team in Poland, medical marketing team. We used to create content, deploy on different digital channels, and we used to drive the performance for these off-patent brand in Europe. So I'm sure because digitally we are not evolved the way Europe has evolved. I think Ganesh, it will take years to reach to that stage, and I think in a country like India, it's not going to happen in a very near future.
And Ganesh, at any given point of time, if India Pharma moves to replacement to non-rep, please join Compass. We'll sell our product to them because they require it.
Can I have one question?
Of
Yes.
course, sure. Why not?
Yeah. I just failed to ask one question regarding this automations in the real, digital tracking for each and every reps, what they're doing inside the doctor's chamber, sitting in the HO. How much is feasible for the Indian organizations? Because a lot of challenges we're facing in terms of Indian objections, because you are keeping, the real what we're doing, because you try to bring a lot of transparency in our real number of calls. So I think a lot of things are basically faced, to meet this objective. So what should be the way out to convince the guys, so that they can comply with this automation?
Sorry, can I answer this question?
Yes, absolutely.
Kanu, I think the biggest point here, I mean, sitting in head office, there are two major responsibilities which any leader should have. Number one, simplify the process. Number one. Number two, improve the efficiency. I will give you example of, you just touched upon in terms of, for example, rep meeting a doctor, how many calls they have done. See, if you are able to create a value in the process, sitting from head office, anybody would like to adopt the process. I would like to give example in one of the market, like I can't name at this point of time. We have launched this Fizzy. Fizzy is a online reporting system, right? And we started this journey in the month of almost July, August last year. And that was a pilot we did in these two markets. And trust my word, Kenny, people saw a lot of value coming out of this. Manager was able to see the value. The rep was able to, I mean, all genuine reps, I must mention that. They could see the value coming out of the report, what are generated after they are, putting the data in the system. And I could see the efficiency of people have gone up. They were more focused on the right kind of doctors. Their coverage, frequency, everything was, I mean, it improved a lot. And I have seen in the last 9 months, the performance of these two countries have really gone more than 25 to 30%. Wow. Performance has grown. I mean, you see, and if I look at the manual process which we used to do in the month of May, June last year. And when I look at the coverage, for example, if I compare, there's 100% improvement in terms of the process efficiencies. So it all depends how you create value in the system. Otherwise, it will just become a mundane.
And
No,
positively.
I agree. I agree. See, the good part, I think you have rightly pointed out what is the benefit, out of this automation. The
Yes.
real challenge is the people, convincing the people actually, because they have always apprehension back of the mind. कि बाबा, you are looking after my work. मैं क्या काम
Yeah.
कर रहा हूँ, क्या नहीं कर रहा हूँ. I think that is not the, kind of apprehension phobia they have. So this is very difficult. Some places where they have a union problem, even though they're not sharing the doctor's location also, because we have to track all the things. We need to get all the data. So it is not some guys are doing, some guys are not doing. So my entire objective will be defeated if you are not get the entire things, in totality. So a lot of hiccups are there. Actually, I know the plus point, what you have rightly pointed out, Mr. Raman, but the real challenge is the convincing the people and putting it on the same board and roll out the things, for all India basis. So that is the key challenge so far this automation is concerned. Yeah.
I think
The answer lies into human to human touch and trust.
Trust.
I
It is
think
how you
Sumit
build
has
it.
also raised his hand. I don't know. Just Sumit, would you like to add to this?
Yeah, I tend to agree with what Mr. Raman just mentioned. Overcoming human challenges means you have to have an interaction basis, convincing them, etc. And also add value as they use it. They should recognize the value of the system. Thirdly, there is always organization, culture, integrity. All of that also comes into picture when data is being captured. Basically, once they agree and they start using it. Maybe they agree for some reason, and then while using, they may cut short the path. That is also what we face a lot of times when we implement automation. And of course, there the system comes into place. In case the system has probability of deriving or sanitizing the data that is input and filtering it and giving reports which are more sanitized and more integral to what it should be like, then actually that also can solve while we are implementing the system. So that's what I wanted to just add to what.
I think it's really great what you guys are talking about from a perspective of a positive direction towards it. And I think the second thing is patience, because that will weed out the good guys from the bad. Just as an adjunct to our entire industry that we are all talking about, there's a company out of Hubli that exports gherkins, your small cucumbers, to the European market. And they had a number of contract farmers in northern Karnataka and southern Maharashtra who they used to, not more than 3/4 of an acre. But their inside sales team had to go to each one of these farmers every week and see if the inputs given, like fertilizer, pesticide, was being applied in a particular fashion. The point is that they used to give minimum guarantees to the farmers, saying that no matter what your crop, this is the price I'll pay per kg. And the more the farmer grew, the better would be the return for the company at the end of the day, because they used to provide the inputs. They hired an automation device called Cropin, which is based out of Bangalore, which actually utilized geotagged photographs, satellite photographs of each patch, each field that was tagged to the ASM, the area sales manager. And that would show the quality of the plants that were growing on a month-on-month basis, for which it was a direct impact of what was the fertilizer input, the pesticide input, the right amount of irrigation that was done. The ASMs rebelled. They said, are you trying to look into our job? They worked on it. They kept their patience for 2 quarters. When they automatically, the ASM saw that the crop yield has improved, because number one, they know they're being watched. Number two, it was not about if you don't do it, you're going to get penalized. It was about if you don't do it, this is what you could have done better. So I think the initial adoption is very important at the sales level, wherein you incorporate the positivity behind the solution as opposed to it being a monitoring solution. Absolutely. It's not the stick over here, it's the carrot. That is most important. Absolutely. But once they see the value in it, they start rolling with it, completely rolling with it. Adoption is very important, a very important point you've raised, sir. Absolutely.
All right. Wow. As I expected, I'm glad this was not a 45-minute panel discussion, because we've managed to talk for more than 1 hour, 40 minutes. I just want to say thank you so much, everyone. This was absolutely wonderful. If anyone has any questions, please connect with Ekta and she will put you in touch with us. The panel, thank you so much, Dipen, Ramanji, Sumit, Sushil, Babul, who dropped off because he had another call, and Sekat, who unfortunately we lost very early in the call. Thank you so much for this. Thank you for all your time. And thank you for being so upfront and honest about what the issues are, what the challenges are, because like I said, Ajay and his team are definitely going to connect with all of you.
I just put my email ID out, open invitation. You just want to bounce off ideas, you want to send an email, please feel free. Most happy to hear from you guys. You have feedback with regard to how the session was, let us know. We're always looking at how do we improve. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much, Ekta, for organizing it.
Thanks, Ajay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, so
Bye.
thank you so much,
wonderful.
Compass and all the thought leaders, for sharing your thoughts
Thank
and
you
being
guys.
with us
Have a
today.
wonderful
Thank you, lovely audience, for making this session engaging with your questions. Bye, everyone. Stay safe. Thank you.
Bye.